Let's start with what materials you will need for silicone life casting. You will need a model, and the time commitment will vary by the body part and surface area. You will need skin-safe silicone. I recommend Body Double Standard Set by Smooth On. You will need plaster gauze for the mother mold, Vaseline or another lubricant for the model's skin, a mixing container marked with measurements or an ounce scale, stirring implements, application implements, an old towel and or rags, a container with water for dipping plaster gauze, and Thivex, which is a silicone thickener and is optional. With your model, make sure that you communicate what this will entail. For a hand, your model will sit for about an hour. Do a small test patch on your model to make sure they are not allergic to the material. Your model should not be excessively hairy on the area to be cast, or removal will be very painful and can remove hair. Also, make your model comfortable. A comfy chair in a comfy position, protect their clothes, and prop up the body part to be cast. The skin-safe silicone that I use is Body Double Standard Set from Smooth On. You must use skin-safe silicone. Order from Reynolds Advanced Materials in LA. They have fast shipping and a student discount. It is a two-part system measured by weight or volume. The standard set has a working time of 5 minutes and a demold time of 20 minutes. The fast set has a working time of 90 seconds and a demold time of 7 minutes. A special note is that Platinum Cure silicone, like Body Double, is sensitive and exhibits curing inhibition when exposed to latex, sulfur, and some other chemicals. Do not use latex gloves, and sulfur-based clay will not work with this material. You will also need plaster gauze for the mother mold, which is a support shell so your silicone mold doesn't flop and lose shape. The easiest and cheapest way to create a mother mold is to use plaster impregnated gauze, which I order from Reynolds Advanced Materials when I order my silicone. I prefer the 4-inch fast set. You will need Vaseline or another lubricant for the model's skin. Do not forget this step. It prevents the material from sticking to your model, pulling out hairs. Vaseline is the perfect viscosity and will not melt with body heat. Do not apply too much or the texture will show up in your finished product. Make sure you smooth it out well. You will need stirring implements such as a paint stir stick or a studio spatula, as well as application implements such as tongue depressors or popsicle sticks, and an old towel and rags to cover your model with and to pick up any mess. Make sure all of these items are for the studio only and don't go back into the kitchen or get used for food preparation or self-care. An optional item is Thivex, which is a silicone thickener. I use this to create seams. Okay, let's start casting. First, make your model comfortable, comfy chair, prop up the body part to be cast. There's a comfy model. Do not forget to lubricate the model. Measure the body double 1 part to 1 part by volume or weight. Stir very thoroughly, scraping the bottom and the sides. The colors of part A and B are different, so you can tell when they are thoroughly mixed. Have your model assume the position in which you want to cast the hand. Cover the hand on each side with a thin layer, which is called a detail or a beauty coat. Start at the highest point first so the material oozes downwards. Be thorough in checking for full coverage and bubbles. You'll be able to tell when the silicone sets as it will not be sticky to the touch. Once the first layer sets, trim the drips with scissors and then apply a second coat. Make sure you check for any thin spots and cover them. This is when I use the Thivex to thicken the silicone to make a cut seam along the area that I will cut to release the hand, and a thicker ribbon of material around the edge of the mold for sturdiness. Once layer 2 sets, you'll make the 2-part mother mold. Cut up various sized strips of the plaster gauze. Apply the strips on half of the silicone hand by dipping them into water, applying and rubbing them smooth. I use about 4 layers of plaster gauze, and for one hand I use about a roll and a half of the plaster gauze. When the first half of the mother mold is set, create the second half. You could add Vaseline to the seam of the first half, or just be careful not to overlap the plaster or the mold will be stuck shut. To demold the mother mold, gently pry the 2 halves apart. Allow the mother mold to set and dry. To demold the silicone mold, very carefully cut the seam in a zigzag pattern along your seam line. I put a finger between the scissors and my model's skin. Go very slowly. After you cut the seam in a zigzag fashion, have the model pull the mold off of themselves. Sometimes it helps to blow inside of the mold. This seam not only helps to release the model's hand, but will release your part when you are finished casting. Before casting, rinse the silicone mold and dry thoroughly. Just realized that I forgot to do one of my favorite tricks for this demo. A very light spritz of Windex into the mold will reduce the surface tension of the silicone and really prohibit bubbles. I think forgetting to do this is why you will see that I did have some bubbles in my final cast. Do not spritz too much, or you will have Windex in place of fingertips. Spritz and then turn the mold upside down so that you'll just have Windex on the surfaces of the inside of the mold. To cast, tightly secure the silicone mold in the mother mold. I use old bicycle inner tube. Make sure that you pour your casting material into the lowest part of the mold first, and then Swirl around to make sure that the material is getting into all of the fingers. You can jiggle and tap the mold to make sure that you are dispersing bubbles. You can clean up any imperfections with basic carving tools and fill minor bubbles with joint compound or spackling.